Thank you for attending the Cannabis Investor Webcast. I would like to thank our platinum sponsors, MJIC, better known as the Marijuana Investment Company, Naturally Splendid Enterprises Limited, Nemus Bioscience Incorporated, American Green Incorporated, and Technical 420. To view Technical 420's latest stock reports, please visit www.technical420.com. Our presenter today is John Hollister, CEO of Nemus Bioscience. John, I will now turn the call over to you. Give me a couple of seconds.
Thank you, Derwin. I really appreciate it. And thank you, all of you out in the audience, for attending today and learning a little bit about Nemus Bioscience. Before I get going, Nemus, this forward, I'll be using I'm sorry about that. I will be talking today about our company, and we'll be making some forward-looking statements. I think you're all familiar with them. We have done the best work that we can to make certain that what we're presenting is factual to the best of our knowledge. But please, all of our information is available on our website at nemusbio.com, including our Super 8K financial information, and I strongly encourage you to do your homework and read as much as you can about our background. Nemus Bioscience is a biopharmaceutical company. We are a drug development company. They're looking to harness the potential power in the different cannabinoids and turn them into pharmaceutical products and develop them through the FDA pathway so that we can make available these potential medicines for many patients and meet the needs of physicians in this country and around the world. And that is products that have been vetted through a very rigorous process so that physicians know what they have, what they're prescribing, and that the patient has that same confidence. They can take that prescription to their local CVS, Walgreens, Rite Aid, get a prescription filled, and then it would be reimbursed by insurance companies. What makes Nemus very unique is we are the sole partners of the University of Mississippi. And for many of you in the audience are familiar, the University of Mississippi is the only entity in the United States that has been authorized by the federal government to cultivate cannabis, and they've been doing that for research purposes since 1968. They've developed a great deal of intellectual knowledge about the product in terms of chemistry, genetics, and they have licensed us as their sole commercial partner, our lead compound, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that later, and it's a very unique product. We've also assembled a management team with a proven track record and the support around us to accomplish this path. The company itself was formed in 2012. We're based in Costa Mesa, California. That's where our headquarters is, and we also have a lab on the University of Mississippi campus in Oxford, Mississippi. It's a beautiful facility. Our management team has a very deep background in both big biotech or big pharmaceuticals and biotech companies, as well as both public and early stage companies. We also are surrounding ourselves with a host of world-class partners in order to get this job done, from Latham & Watkins on the legal side to investment banks to development organizations, and of course the University of Mississippi. A little bit more about our management team and our advisors and board. I'm the person up in the upper left, John Hollister. I have now more than 25 years, can't believe it, in both biotech and pharmaceuticals. Post-Stanford, started at SmithKline, Beecham, and was initially out in the field sales, went into product management, was shipped off to Europe to start a sales force, and then came back and launched a product. From there, which was successful, after 100 years, snowstorm in 1996, my wife and I, both Californians, decided we'd come back to the land of earthquakes and fires, and joined a little company called Averon and led the marketing team to create a brand called Flu Mist. After Flu Mist, we were actually acquired, and gave me the opportunity to look further south, where we're both from, my wife and I, and joined Amgen, where I was able to help launch the Neulasta, which is the largest biologics launch in history, I think to date even, and then was made Global Director of Marketing of Oncology and led some assets into first in human, and the teams also led them through phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, and phase 4 management of Neulasta. And subsequent to Amgen, I went to a couple of different device companies and led those. When I joined the company back in May of last year, Nemus, the first person that I needed to find was a chief medical officer, and I was fortunate to be able to entice Brian Murphy to join us. Dr. Murphy is a veteran of big pharma and biotech, got his training residency at Tufts, then he did dual fellowships at Mass General, actually became a lecturer at Harvard before going back to New York and heading up the Catholic Healthcare Services or hospital system, where he saw patients, led research, and during a Grand Rounds presentation was approached by the CEO of Roche, who asked him if he had ever thought about going to the industry, and he hadn't at that time, but decided to jump into industry. And went from Roche to Valiant, actually to Intermune, and then to Valiant, where he was actually in charge of Nabilone, or Sesamet, a THC, a synthetic THC product. Got some experience there in that, and then was chief medical officer at a couple of biotech companies. So he, like me, has experience in big pharma and biotech, which is really important to have both for companies like ours to be successful. And then Liz joined us about the same time. She's a chief financial officer with a deep background in both small and large companies, both public and private, and a huge help. On the right side of our group are both board members and advisors to us. And very quickly, Kozlikos is our chairman and co-founder of the company. Great background for entrepreneurialism and helping companies in the public sector too. Tom George just joined us recently. He is the chair of our audit committee. He's the CFO of Decker's Outdoor, and a great company in Santa Barbara, a large company that's public and has a very seasoned executive CFO. And Jerry McLaughlin is the CEO of a pharma company, or of a biotech company, similar to us in development. Great experience both in big pharma and smaller companies. And very briefly, Mahmoud El-Salih is Dr. El-Salih is the head of the marijuana research program at the University of Mississippi, works in the natural products group, has been there for many years leading the program, has either edited or written the chapters on cannabis that are read by doctors in training, medical school techs, published over 300 scientific publications, and is also the co-author of the patent that we've licensed from the University of Mississippi. We also have regulatory and strategic marketing support. Cannabinoids, as you all know, affect many body systems. We're working, and our vision is to isolate individual cannabinoids and use them for very specific targets, creating products that are very specific for indications. One of the challenges with cannabinoids, and this is well documented, is that they're absorbed in two different ways primarily. One is they can either be burned and inhaled, which is not very elegant for a pharmaceutical product, or secondarily it can be orally ingested. Unfortunately, when you ingest cannabinoids orally through the gut, through the stomach, they are subject to first pass. That is, they are metabolized through the liver, and which is highly variable from patient to patient. And the package inserts in the U.S. and also in Europe for licensed products reflect that. And that's the physician experience and the patient experience, which means that one person can get too much of an effect, both positive and negative, if you will, when the next almost feels nothing. And this is very difficult to manage. So our whole goal as a company is to adapt these molecules so that they can be absorbed in different ways. Those are potentially ocular, transmucosally, and rectal. And the result you can see in the graph is a different bioavailability curve. On the left is Marinol that shows a very high spike and a very steep drop-off, as opposed to a more distributed both peak as well as clearance from the body system. So that's our goal for our products. As I'm certain you in this audience know, developing cannabis-derived medicines has challenges, as this is a very regulated field that's going through a transition, and the awkward balance between state and federal legislations. And our view is, as the DEA continues to view cannabis as a controlled substance and illegal, our partnership with the University of Mississippi provides us the ability to do our research with them. As the University of Mississippi has in their National Center for Natural Products Research been working on this with licenses from the DEA for years and supplying research institutions around the country with materials to conduct the clinical trials, which actually underscores and has provided us the guidance that there's so much potential in this product or in these plants. So if you think of Nemus, Nemus has this relationship with the University of Mississippi that enables us to have a large research discovery group, roughly 100 postdocs and doctoral students who are botanical science specialists and school of pharmacy students or post-students who are working on sciences that we either direct them or have been capitalizing on. They also have a beautiful license or laboratory that we've now licensed from them, which we're in the process of securing the right approvals to be able to use. We also have licensed from the University of Mississippi our lead compound, additionally 3 formulations, and are working with them on a research project, which I'll describe in a minute. The patent that we licensed is for a novel compound. This patent was issued in August of last year by the Patent Office. It is for an ester of THC. This ester is built so that it can be absorbed in alternative paths, as I described before, in the human body, whether ocularly, transmucosally, and rectally, and we've demonstrated that capacity to date. The patent is a very broad patent on both composition of matter and processes to prepare it, as well as a very large 66 claims in total. And it's a demonstration of how we're thinking of bypassing the liver to have a more predictable bioavailability and hopefully corresponding effects in the human body. We underwent an extensive, what's called a strategic asset management process last year. We used a consultancy group that has done this in the past for Pfizer's and Merck's and the big companies, and does it for companies like ourselves, where we are posed with the challenge of the 45 or 50 potential indications. You use a whole series of variables about market size, attractiveness, competition, the difficulty in doing clinical trials, the appropriateness of your product in that area, as well as effect size, among other variables. Yeah, for us, it was also important to look at, and what this consultancy does is look at deals and how they're structured. And when we looked at all of those variables, glaucoma was the clear first indication for us, and I'll describe why in a second. We're also working on an area of multiple sclerosis spasticity. These are what the THC candidates. We are working in the area of CBD and looking with the aims of developing compounds for anxiety and epilepsy. And then lastly, we are doing a research project in the area of methicillin-resistant Staph aureus, and I'll describe that in a second also. Why glaucoma as a lead compound? Well, so in general, glaucoma is the leading cause of blindness in the United States. So there's an urgent need. There are roughly 3 million Americans today that are affected by it, but that number is growing rapidly. It's also the largest prescription market in ophthalmology. And roughly that represents $4.5 billion or so in the U.S., EU, and Japan, and about $2 billion just in the U.S. itself. 28 million or more prescriptions are written in the U.S. alone. Roughly 50% of patients in the U.S. are on 2 or more of the different drops that are available in the marketplace. So there's a transience nature which enables us to think of it as a relatively easier market to penetrate and looking for alternatives. No new product has entered the market for almost 20 years. Each of the candidates or each of the products that are in the market have their own their pluses and minuses as products have them, which offer us a good opportunity. What we know about our product candidate is that we presented data at the AAPS meeting on this at the end of last year. In rabbit models, our formulation penetrates all 3 chambers of the eye. This is important because the parent compound, THC, does not penetrate the eye very effectively as it's an oil, and our compound is more hydrophilic. It's more water soluble, and it allows for it to penetrate the eye. Once inside the eye, the molecules have been added to the parent compound, cleave, and it becomes delta-9 THC. What we saw in the animal model is that IOP is reduced upwards of 50%, which corresponds to as much of a reduction as seen or more, statistically significantly more, than any of the compounds in similar studies when they were being developed. So this wasn't a comparative study, at least not with all of the products that are available, but it clearly appears in rabbits, at least, to have the effect that you'd hope to see. Additionally, there was no THC detectable in the systemic system. So we're not certain whether it's just that the very small amount of THC that's administered to the eye and gets absorbed in the eye is cleared by the eye and therefore it doesn't disseminate, or whether there's just no bleed out from the eye into the systemic system. Or it could be that just the amount that gets out is below detectable levels. But this is great from a development perspective because it allows us in the glaucoma field to at least have less of a concern of any psychotropic effects associated with THC. We're working on the product to be either QD or BID and looking at other ways to optimize the market. The reason that, another reason that glaucoma was so attractive to us and maybe as investors look at us is that the glaucoma field trials or studies are smaller because the N, the number of subjects you use, is less because it's an objective measure. There's a company currently going through clinical trials, so we're able to look at study sizes and designs and learn a lot from them, and that's helpful to us. But we believe that the clinical trials are smaller, they're shorter in duration. If truly there isn't a great deal of systemic bleed of THC, we're hopeful that it requires less diagnostic tests and therefore the costs associated with it. Okay, yeah, so the other area and reason that glaucoma is so interesting is that the deals that are done in the area of glaucoma are, unlike normal pharmaceutical products or biotech products, deals are typically done very late stage. In the glaucoma area, they're bimodal. As many deals are done, even in preclinical, and at the end of phase 1B, 2A, as are done at phase 3. If the data is strong, companies look at it and they look for all the reasons that we spoke of before: faster, smaller trials, less risk, translation from animal to humans are a pretty straight line, that they are very attractive. And so it may be an opportunity for us to partner or out-license or even outright sell off the glaucoma franchise. Second, and I won't speak as great a length at this, but multiple sclerosis is a target that a number of companies are looking at. Clearly, it would be of great benefit to these patients who suffer from both spasticity, but also from pain. And so we'll be looking at both of those potential endpoints in this population. Likely, this will be done with a transmucosal patch, a buccal patch underneath between the gums and the lips. A reasonably large market, 400,000 patients in the United States, and certainly there's a good case for THC-based compounds to work in this population. But the bioavailability variability is problematic in this population too. So we hope to be able to demonstrate that with our novel compound, we can provide less product, less amount of active compound, and hit a particular range, a therapeutic window, and maintain that for a longer period of time. I'm not going to speak too much about epilepsy because it's much earlier stage for us, but we're working in research to develop a compound that would be appropriate in this much needed patient population. And another area that we're looking at is use of a combination of cannabinoids for treating methicillin-resistant Staph aureus. This area of research is very compelling. I didn't share, but Brian, Dr. Murphy's background is as an infectious disease doctor. One of his fellowships was in that. He's done a great deal of work in infectious diseases over the years, and there's just compelling literature to support the use in here, and so we're exploring different ways to do this. The way that we work as a company is that we're working with a number of different partners. Obviously, University of Mississippi serves as our discovery area and research, and we're looking to do more IP work with them as we progress other candidates. We also work out of our, we'll be working out of our private lab in Mississippi itself. We've assembled a great legal team, IP team to work with us, as well as a drug consultancy, a drug development consultancy, Apelin, who've been working with us to lay out the pathway. We'll also partner with clinical contract manufacturing and contract research organizations to do a lot of the work both on glaucoma and our other products, as well as the final manufacturing. And then lastly, our model is about partnering with pharma and biotech. We do not envision ourselves as a company that's going to build out 3,000 salespeople. We look to out-license or even outright sell our products, which, for example, glaucoma is very interesting because it would not have an effect in terms of pricing on any of the other products that we would hope to develop out of the platform of cannabinoids. And with that, I will turn over the questions to you all, and thank you so much for your attention. I appreciate it, and please visit our website at www.nemusbioscience.com. Look under Investor Relations, and you can find our most recent news as well as our 10K and all of our financial documents. Thank you so much.
John, one question was your PowerPoint slide. Could that be found on your website?
Yes, it can be, and it should look very similar to this one. It's maybe a slide different or two, but yes.
Okay. Give me a second to queue up questions. The first question, John, glaucoma applications for marijuana have received a frigid greeting from traditional ophthalmic institutions. Any comment?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because the American Association of Ophthalmology has some positions on glaucoma, and what they've acknowledged, and I'm paraphrasing, is that cannabis does in fact have a positive effect on glaucoma. So there is a reduction in IOP, unfortunately, it's looking at systemic use of cannabis, and there's a downside to that, and that is that it lowers systemic blood pressure, which has the potential of reducing blood flow to the optic nerve, counteracting any benefits that you get from the IOP lowering. So at least to date, the Academy has been does not support the use of smoking or systemic cannabinoids. Having said that, they also said if you could selectively present the effects to just the area, just the eye, that seems like a very appealing or interesting potential. So that's what we're doing. We are delivering directly to the eye, exclusively to the eye, avoiding the issues of the systemic effects.
Next question, how much confidence do you have in animal models being predictive for humans?
Well, you know, the whole purpose of early preclinical work in animal models is that they are validated as a reasonable reflection of what should happen in humans. And that's why you choose particular species for particular situations. And, you know, in oncology, when I was at Amgen, we would have to select for one particular product or tumor type a mouse model and another one a rat model, because even they, while they seem kind of similar, have biologies that are different. The same is true with eyes. And in the case of glaucoma, the rabbit model is the model that is used as the standard and is expected as the first case and has been used. And when you look at IOP, intraocular pressure, of products that have been previously approved, it's not exactly transferable, but very close. And then it's very linear in terms of products of the 4 different categories. Say if you took prostaglandins and beta blockers and looked at what they reduced in rabbits, they had a similar kind of reduction in humans, and they were parallel to each other. They kind of tracked it the same way. So we have a fairly high degree of confidence that what we've seen in rabbits, we'll see something relatively similar in humans.
Okay. Next question, how might the Careers Act introduced this week impact your competitive advantage in cannabis-related research?
Yeah, so, you know, it's a great question of projecting what's going to happen in the future in terms of the illegality or legality. And frankly, we see any movement towards legalization, frankly, as positive, because it helps the adoption at the end of the day. What we believe is that physicians are looking for a prescriptive solution that is vetted by the FDA, has gone through all the rigorous review that the FDA demands. And so we feel comfortable that we're getting a head start with our discovery group at the University of Mississippi, these brilliant scientists who are so committed to the work that they've been doing around cannabis. And what they want to see is the fruits of their labor translate into products that are available for patients. So from our perspective, any softening of the rules actually probably makes it easier for adoption downstream. It also probably makes it easier for our clinical trials, and we just have a head start and advantage working with the University of Mississippi and all their personal intellectual knowledge of the product.
Next question, is the license between University of Mississippi and Nemus, is it an exclusive license?
Absolutely. It's a worldwide exclusive license that's perpetual for this product and the formulations, and understanding that we are exploring other kinds of ways to present the THC compound, and as well as combining it with other things. So yes, it is an exclusive worldwide right to the product.
Next question. What stage of trials are you in? I guess they're asking, you know, maybe for the different categories: glaucoma, MS, anxiety, epilepsy. Is it in trials, the application of the medicine?
Yeah. So we are at this stage with our lead compound, truly a preclinical company. That means that we are working on finalizing formulations, doing animal models, doing a lot of the CMC kind of work, the characterization of what's been done. Then we will do, and that will be done this year. Next year we will intend to work on the IND enabling studies with the hopes, and obviously enlisting the guidance and input from FDA along that path, and with the hopes of entering into human trials in the somewhere around the beginning of 2017. And that would be a phase 1B, hopefully, a phase 1B 2A clinical trial in that time frame.
What are the major hurdles and obstacles you see for Nemus?
You know, that, like almost any company in our space, it's access to capital, which then governs, how much work you can do at any given time. So that we see as our biggest hurdle is just continued access to the necessary capital going forward. And so that's consumes a portion of certainly my time. But once we have that, we are surrounding ourselves with, the top shelf team to execute the clinical milestones, to be able to be in a position to present confidently to the agency, being the FDA, a package that is robust and supports the use of our product during the evaluation process. That we have great respect for the agency, and so Brian and I will be working with our many partners to do that. Now, so the second is we have a higher degree of confidence, and part of the reason Brian and I joined Nemus is that the literature gives us a very high sense of confidence that these compounds will work. And that's so different than, my experience in, for instance, in oncology, where it's so much harder to find a molecule that works, and when you find it, so often it has deleterious effects that you just can't live with. And in this case, we're really optimistic that the molecule that we have today will do what it's supposed to do. And then the question is, how big an effect will it have? And that one, the data will tell us at some point.
Next question. Could you provide any color on the private placement?
Yeah, so we are in the process of doing a private placement at this point, and I can't give a lot of specifics because they really are intended for accredited investors. But if you are interested, you can give me a call or send in a note via the note that's on the screen here at hello@nemusbio.com, or give us a call. And if you are an accredited investor, we'll tell you what we're doing. But in essence, we're raising some money for this working capital as we keep pushing our process forward, and are very excited about the investor group that we have supporting us at this point.
Next question. What are some of the pros and cons of collaborating with the University of Mississippi?
Well, the pros are extensive. We have access to people and their brains and their 45 years of experience, which is just fabulous. And frankly, for any of you who have never been there, I had never been to Oxford, Mississippi. I'd been to Mississippi before, but never there. And just the people are so delightful. The institution, the university itself, is just a jewel. I mean, it's really remarkable. The buildings are so modern, but the energy there is so positive. And before, I'd known a little bit about the School of Pharmacy as being one of the most prestigious in the country. I didn't know that much about this School of Botanical Sciences, and it is considered one of the preeminent schools. So we are blessed to have a relationship with them. If there's a con, I think working with any big bureaucracy, things move a little more slowly than you'd like, but that's the case in a big pharmaceutical company. and with the university. But generally, the group has been extremely responsive in trying to cut red tape, and so we feel pretty positive. You know, I really have a tough time saying that there are too many cons of working with them. They are flexible, and that is, you know, that's a real breath of fresh air too.
Next question. University of Mississippi owns the patent, and Nemus is licensed to develop and distribute. Is that correct?
Yeah, so which is very standard. We've licensed the rights to a patent that they own and developed, and in a very standard pharmaceutical way. That's how that works. And you know, even the contracts are up on the website too, so you can review them. We redacted the actual values in them, but they're competitive with what is industry norms. And so that's very typical for a pharmaceutical structure, that you license a patent, and in fact we've licensed a sub-license patent from the University of Texas for the patch. So and we continue to look at other technologies around the industry that seem appropriate and compatible with what we're doing and our vision of administering cannabinoids through routes that are more predictable, we hope, in terms of their effect.
Next question, John. Between here and early 2017, how much capital do you anticipate needing?
Yeah, so it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 million is about the amount that we'll need to spend between here and the end of 2017, maybe a little bit shy of that. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 million gets us through clinical phase 1B to A. And so that's the amount of money and capital that we'll raise between here and there. Now, I will tell you, if something else pops from our research, you know, we may want to, and we'll obviously take a very hard look at, is there something else that would be exciting for us to be developing, and we'll look to our investment community to see whether we need more proceeds in a near term. So we leave that open, but at this point we're very focused on the development of glaucoma because that's the fastest way to humans, and for all the reasons I spoke to you before.
Well, that was, I think that was the last question. Let me make sure. Well, we got one more question. What key milestones should investors look for over the next 6 to 12 months?
So I have to be careful with what I share, but in the next year, some of the things that will be happening will be around locking down our formulation, selecting our partners to do the work that we need to do in that formulation work. Obviously, if our research is productive, you know, we may see something in CBD or MRSA in terms of fruits of the research work, which would be very exciting also. And then somewhere along the way, we'll be looking at where we are with the pre-IND work, and that will be an important time too. So during and I should add, during this coming year, much of the work is preclinical. It means that you do, say, a lab study in rabbits or in the next species in line, which is dogs. Dogs actually have natural occurring glaucoma, and we'll do that study. Then we write it up, and then we submit it for presentation at an appropriate venue for public hearing. And so those will always be exciting events for both us and moving the molecule forward. So you can expect, corresponding with much of this preclinical work over the next year, our presence at important meetings. We'll also form an advisory board in glaucoma to begin to help educate and familiarize thought leaders in the glaucoma field with the work we're doing. Back to the earlier question that was posed to me about the current view. Well, the current view will be will evolve or change if our data is encouraging for them, because ophthalmologists definitely want alternatives, and clearly they're not opposed to something if it overcomes some of the issues that they've seen before.
Well, John, that concludes our Q&A. Any last comments?
No, I just can't say enough how excited we are at Nemus Bioscience about the opportunity. We think we have a compound that will help address the issues that you see, and you see it in current clinical trials of other sponsors in the marketplace of orally consumed cannabinoids. I think it's generally known by the people in the medical marijuana field too about consuming edibles. The same issues apply. We're trying to provide physicians and patients a solution to that problem, and really encourage you to take a look at Nemus Bioscience on our website. Be certain to read our 8K and all of our supporting documents, and hopefully we'll garner your support over time. And thank you, Derwin.
Well, thank you, John.